On Thursday morning, 2 days before El Clásico, Federico Valverde was taken to hospital with a head injury. He had been in a fight with his own teammate in the dressing room at the training ground of the most successful club in European football history. By Sunday evening, Barcelona had lifted the La Liga trophy at Camp Nou. Real Madrid's players walked off the pitch in silence. Their second consecutive season without a major trophy, their third manager in 18 months, their dressing room in pieces. And somewhere in Lisbon, sitting in his apartment after another Benfica training session, José Mourinho watched all of this unfold on his television.
There have been further developments involving the sensational training ground fights involving Real Madrid players tchouameni and Federico Valverde.
The most controversial manager in football. The man who had walked away from Real Madrid 13 years earlier, leaving behind trophies and wreckage in equal measure. The man who had always said he would never go back. He is now in final negotiations to return. This is the story of how the most successful club in European football tore itself apart, and why the most divisive manager in the world might be the only one capable of putting it back together. To understand how Real Madrid ended up here, you have to go back 2 years, to a night when everything still made sense. June 2024, Wembley Stadium, the Champions League final. Vinicius Jr. scores in the second half. Toni Kroos controls the midfield like he has done for a decade. Real Madrid lift their 15th European trophy. The dynasty continues. That was the last time anything went right. In the months that followed, the empire began to crack. Kroos retired. Casemiro was already gone. Modric was in his final years. The midfield that had won everything was suddenly held together by memories and replacements who could not fill the space. Carlo Ancelotti, the manager who had delivered 3 Champions League titles across 2 spells, left for the Brazilian national team. He had seen enough. He knew what was coming. The club promoted Xabi Alonso, a legend as a player. He had just led Bayer Leverkusen to an unbeaten Bundesliga season. He was supposed to be the future. He lasted 7 months. Alonso wanted discipline, structure, a system built on possession and defensive organization. The players wanted freedom. They wanted the ball at their feet and the space to express themselves. By January, the tension had become unbearable. ESPN reported friction between Alonso and 3 of the biggest names in the squad: Vinicius Jr., Valverde, and Jude Bellingham. The players did not like his methods. They did not want to adapt, so the club removed him. The man with the plan was sent away, and the inmates were left to run the asylum. Álvaro Arbeloa was promoted from Castilla, the youth team. A former right-back, a loyal soldier, a man who understood that his job was not to coach these players, but to manage them, to keep them happy, to avoid conflict. His first match in charge was a Copa del Rey tie against Albacete, a second division club fighting relegation. Real Madrid lost 3-2. From there, the season collapsed completely. They were eliminated from the Champions League in the quarterfinals by Bayern Munich. By May, the only question left was how bad it would get. On Sunday, they got their answer. The fight between Valverde and Tchouameni did not happen in a vacuum. It had been building for weeks. Small tensions, the kind of friction that happens when a group of elite competitors are losing and nobody knows who to blame. On Wednesday, the day before the incident, Valverde reportedly refused to shake Tchouameni's hand before training, a small act of defiance, a signal that something deeper was wrong. During the session, there were heavy challenges, the kind that happen when frustration boils over and professionalism starts to slip. By the time they returned to the dressing room on Thursday, the tension had reached its breaking point. Nobody outside the room knows exactly what was said, but the result was clear. Valverde ended up on the floor with blood running down his face. The club called it an accident, but within hours, Florentino Perez himself had arrived at Valdebebas, trying to understand how his club had descended into chaos. Both players were fined 500,000 euros. No suspensions, no public accountability, just money changing hands and everyone pretending it had been resolved. But this was not an isolated incident. In the weeks before the fight, ESPN reported other confrontations, tension between Antonio Rudiger and Alvaro Carreras, arguments between senior players and members of Arbeloa's coaching staff, and most significantly, incidents involving Kylian Mbappe and the technical team. The dressing room had not just fractured, it had shattered into pieces, and nobody at the club seemed capable of putting it back together. Arbeloa held a press conference before El Clásico. He spoke about focus, about preparation, about giving everything for the badge. But when a journalist asked about the fight, he changed the subject. When they asked about the petition demanding Mbappe's departure, a petition that had now reached 70 million signatures, he offered nothing. When they asked if he would still be manager next season, he smiled and said he was focused on the present. It was the smile of a man who already knew the answer. Kylian Mbappe did not cause everything that has gone wrong at Real Madrid, but he has become the symbol of it. This week, an online petition demanding his departure reached 70 million signatures. 70 million, that is nearly the entire population of France, calling for their most famous footballer to leave the biggest club in the world. The trigger was a photograph. Mbappe on a yacht in Sardinia, recovering from a thigh injury, while his teammates played Espanyol. While the season collapsed around them, while the petition grew and the criticism intensified. He was on holiday in the Mediterranean. His club was burning. The backlash was immediate. Spanish media questioned his commitment. French newspapers reported that figures inside the team were annoyed by his lack of discretion. Fans flooded social media with one word: fuera, get out. But here is the uncomfortable truth that the petition ignores. Mbappe has scored 41 goals this season. He has been directly involved in more than half of Real Madrid's league goals. His individual numbers are extraordinary, and none of it has translated into trophies. The question is no longer whether Mbappe is talented. The question is whether talent alone is enough. And at Real Madrid, the answer has been delivered twice now. It is not. Real Madrid's problems did not begin with Mbappe. They began with a model that worked brilliantly for 2 decades and is now breaking apart. Florentino Perez built the Galactico system on a simple principle: sign the biggest names, generate the biggest revenue, win the biggest trophies. For most of his presidency, it worked. 6 Champions Leagues since 2014, a dynasty that dominated Europe. But the Galactico model has a flaw built into its foundation. It concentrates power in the hands of the players. The stars become bigger than the institution. And when those stars stop performing, the club has no mechanism to hold them accountable. Consider what happened to Xabi Alonso. He arrived with a clear philosophy: possession, discipline, defensive structure, the kind of approach that had made him one of the most promising young managers in Europe at Bayer Leverkusen. He lasted 7 months. Arbeloa was promoted because he would not challenge anyone. He was a safe choice, a familiar face, a man who understood that his job was to manage the egos, not the football. And now he cannot even do that. His captain is in hospital. His star forward is on a yacht. His dressing room is at war with itself. And 70 million people are demanding change while the club seems paralyzed. This is the vacuum that needs to be filled, not by another safe choice, not by another loyal servant, by someone who can walk into that dressing room and make every single person in it afraid to disappoint him. There is only one manager alive who has done that at the Bernabeu before. José Mourinho managed Real Madrid from 2010 to 2013. In those 3 years, he won La Liga with 100 points, a record that stood for nearly a decade. He reached the Champions League semi-finals 3 consecutive times. He broke Barcelona's stranglehold on Spanish football, and he left behind a divided dressing room, a fractured relationship with Iker Casillas, and a fan base split between those who loved him and those who wanted him gone. That history matters. It explains why his return would be controversial. It explains why Casillas said this week that he respects Mourinho, but does not want him back at Real Madrid. But it also explains why Mourinho might be exactly what Real Madrid need right now. When Mourinho arrived in 2010, Barcelona were untouchable. Pep Guardiola's team had won everything. Real Madrid had become accustomed to losing. The gap between the clubs felt permanent. Mourinho changed the mentality. He demanded intensity. He demanded commitment. He demanded that every player, regardless of their status, follow his instructions or face the consequences. He benched Casillas, the club captain, the most beloved goalkeeper in Real Madrid history. He did it because he believed another goalkeeper gave the team a better chance to win. The decision was brutal, it was divisive, and it demonstrated something that has been missing at the Bernabeu for years. The manager was in charge. Not the players, not the president, the manager. That is the quality Real Madrid are now paying €3 million to bring back. Not his tactics, not his press conferences, his authority. Because the current crisis is not about football. It is about hierarchy. It is about a dressing room where nobody knows who is in charge. Where players can refuse to shake each other's hands and still take the pitch together. Where a star can vacation while the season collapses and face no consequences beyond a sarcastic comment from a manager who knows he cannot do anything about it. Mourinho would do something about it. He would walk into that dressing room and establish the rules immediately. He would make clear that talent does not exempt anyone from accountability. He would create the structure that has been missing since Ancelotti left. Would it be perfect? No. Mourinho's methods create friction. They burn bridges. They divide opinions. His first spell at Madrid ended in acrimony, with players reportedly going to Perez and demanding that either Mourinho leave or they would. But Real Madrid do not need perfection right now. They need order. They need someone who can look Mbappe in the eye and tell him that his goals mean nothing if the team does not win. Someone who can make Vinicius understand that sulking after substitutions is not acceptable at this level. Someone who can force Bellingham to buy into a system instead of expecting the system to revolve around him. Mourinho is 63 years old. He has managed 12 clubs across 5 countries. He has won 26 major trophies. He has nothing left to prove except this, that he can take the most dysfunctional dressing room in world football and turn it back into a team. Real Madrid are desperate. They have watched Barcelona celebrate 2 consecutive titles. They have watched their own dressing room tear itself apart. They have watched 70 million people demand the departure of the player who was supposed to deliver the Champions League. They need someone who can walk into the fire and not flinch. José Mourinho has spent his entire career walking into fires. At Porto, where nobody believed a Portuguese club could win the Champions League. At Chelsea, where he declared himself the special one and then proved it. At Inter, where he delivered the treble in a league that had written his team off. At Real Madrid, where he broke Barcelona's dominance and created a side that terrified Europe. He has also left destruction behind, burned relationships, divided fan bases, careers altered by his decisions. That is the trade-off Real Madrid are about to make. They are choosing disruption over stability, authority over harmony, results over peace. It might work. It might fail spectacularly. It might produce another La Liga title and another fractured dressing room, but at least they will know who is in charge. And right now, at this broken version of the most successful club in European football history, that might be exactly what they need. There is a version of this story where Real Madrid find another way, where they hire a younger manager with modern ideas and patience, where they sell Mbappe and rebuild around Vinicius and Bellingham, where they take the long road back to the top and arrive there stronger than before. That version might work, eventually. But Florentino Perez is 79 years old. He does not have time for eventually. He has watched his club humiliated for 2 consecutive seasons. He has watched Barcelona celebrate on his television while his own players fought in the dressing room. He wants results. He wants them now. And there is only one manager he trusts to deliver them. José Mourinho knows what awaits him at the Bernabeu. The egos, the dysfunction, the pressure that comes with managing the biggest club in the world during its darkest modern chapter. He is walking into it anyway, because this is what he does. This is who he has always been. The man who thrives in chaos. The manager who builds order from wreckage. The special one. 13 years ago, he left Real Madrid in flames. Now he is coming back to put out a fire. Whether he can do it, whether anyone can do it, remains to be seen. But for the first time in 2 years, Real Madrid have something they have not had in a long time: a plan, and a man willing to execute it, no matter the cost.